You know, AutoZone is great at helping their customers.
True. From free battery charging to loan a tool, they help people get in the zone.
I was thinking, what if they also helped us send 4 listeners to the ESPYs?
Greeny, that's exactly what they're doing. It's the Mike and Mike experience at the ESPYs presented by AutoZone. Folks just have to listen and watch us from April 20th through May 15th. All the details are at espnradio.com/Mike's SB contest.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
It's called The Zone. AutoZone's going to help you get there.
National League Central rivals go head-to-head this weekend when the Pirates face the Cubs at Wrigley.
Swing and a miss. He struck him out.
The pregame at 3 Eastern, first pitch at 4. Saturday on ESPN Radio and the new ESPN app. This is the Best of Mike and Mike podcast on ESPNradio.com. The Best of Mike and Mike.
Hey, it's Golic. Thanks for checking out the Best of Mike and Mike podcast. Here's what we got for you from Tuesday. The sports community response to the horrible situation in Baltimore, including the latest from Baseball Commissioner Rob Manfred. Mark Dominik on top prospects falling in the draft. Jon Daniels on why the Rangers brought Josh Hamilton back to Texas. And we do a little baseball and boxing talk with Brian Kenny.
The Best of Mike and Mike.
And we say good morning and thank you for starting your day with Mike and Mike. We're presented by Progressive Insurance. And I'll tell you, the guest list is jam-packed this morning with our guests, as always, on the Subway Fresh Take Hotline. That will include the Commissioner of Baseball, Rob Manfred, who was in Baltimore yesterday and was certainly right in the center of the decision-making process of what they would do last night, what they will do tonight, and going forward. There is so much going on in sports, and in this hour alone, you will hear Teddy Atlas on the fight. You will hear why John Gruden would not take Jameis Winston number 1. We had a hockey game 7. We have hugely interesting basketball on and off the court. But all of it, of course, pales in comparison to the events in the great American city of Baltimore, where we have been many times, more than you can count. It's a beautiful city. It's a wonderful place to visit. Obviously, great sports tradition and so much more. And nothing there that's going on right now has anything to do with sports. The images coming out of there are so frightening and so sad. And we just wish, first and foremost, I'm imagining that most of the people who are accustomed to waking up in Baltimore with Mike and Mike, putting us on the radio or the TV, probably not with us this morning. Certainly understandable. You have bigger concerns, but just know that we're thinking of you and we hope that everyone is safe.
Well, you know, this is easily one of those situations where real life puts sports in its place. You know, many times we talk about how sports can help and heal in certain situations, how sports comes along to real life to aid in the situation. But this is one of those where it was clearly in the backdrop. It needed to be in the backdrop because what's going on in Baltimore, and unfortunately, we've seen it going on in too many places around the country around a situation like this. Again, last week, Freddie Gray dying in custody in Baltimore, and yesterday he was laid to rest. And this is what went on: the looting and the rioting and the fires, to where Rob Manfred, the baseball commissioner, said, you know, this game is postponed and we'll see where we go from there. But this is clearly one of those situations where the real life, and unfortunately, all too many times we've seen it now, has put sports in the backdrop.
Yeah, it's incredible. You know, when you watch the images on television, or if you're following them in the way that most people probably do these days online, it's just amazing that this is going on, and frightening. I don't have any other better word for it. We were talking about at dinner last night. We don't, you know, my kids are now at an age where we don't have enough family dinners anymore. Right. It used to be we would sit down, the 4 of us, to dinner all the time. And now, you know, between Nikki's
somebody's there. No.
My schedule's wide open.
You're sitting at the table.
It's my kids who are far too busy. But last night just happened to be a night where neither kid had anything they had to do. And so we were sitting and talking about the situation. And, you know, the kids have a very they have a much more mature understanding of things than I think we did when we were their age. They're so much more exposed,
sure they are,
be it through media and other ways, to the things that happen. They have a very sophisticated understanding and of what happens. And again, obviously, I mean, we deal with the sports side of things, and we'll get to that in a second. But it should go without saying that the fact that a baseball game was canceled or postponed is overwhelmingly the least significant thing that happened.
I mean, I really don't know what to think, Greeny. I really don't. You know, I've never been in situations that we've seen here in Baltimore, we've seen in other places, where the young man is getting laid to rest and his family is basically pleading with everybody, let's keep this peaceful. Protests, you understand, but let's keep them peaceful. And unfortunately, it was anything but peaceful. Some are, some aren't. It's just, and I wish I had an answer. I wish anybody had an answer. I don't even know I don't know. You want to condemn those that are starting fires and looting and rioting. You definitely want to. When you hear the talk of that's not the way to send a message. But when it's happening in these people's minds over and over and over again, that's. And I'm sure in this situation, again, I've never been in it, there are those that have a lot of deep meaning to really peacefully protest and try and get an answer to this. And let's be honest, there are those that are looking to destroy things, right? I mean, there are those that are saying, okay, this is our opportunity to destroy things, and that's what they do. So sometimes, unfortunately, you're so concerned with hearing the National Guard is coming in, extra police are coming in, that
gets lost. Is what was really important in the first place.
What was really important in the first place, that's exactly right, gets lost. And those that are doing the damage, and listen, if you're part of that and listening to me say this or want to tell me to shut the heck up, I don't know what I'm talking about, I'm not there, that's fine. But that's all I can do is look at it from the outside in and say, okay, you want to send a message. Even the family that's mourning the loss is saying, let's keep this peaceful, to send the message, and it's not, because that's all I see on CNN is listening to the police talk about the extra protection that's going to come in, and they're being issued their riot gear to come in. So the focus goes to that and not on what it should be of what's going on. What's going on around the country in these situations. But unfortunately, we're worried about the extra police coming in that have to take care of the rioting and the looters and put out the fires. And at the end is that there are those that I'm sure maybe that are doing it that are saying, well, this is going to be a wake-up call for everybody to understand what's going on. I have no idea. I mean, I find it hard to believe that destruction will do that. They're doing it for what they think are their reasons, but it just seems to me that's what I gathered. And how you sit with your kids who are younger than mine. Jake is home getting ready for the draft. He's 24 years old. The conversation is elevated a little more.
Of course.
And that was one of the thoughts as we said, where's the message? That becomes page 2, page 3 of what's going on because we're so worried about taking care of the problem that was just created with all the looting and the fires and everything. And it seems like a shame if the true meaning of this, and let's get down to what went on, gets lost.
Yeah, I don't believe it will get fully lost, but I understand the point that you're making.
I agree with that.
It feels sometimes like we are living, to use a ridiculous but I think apt analogy, in a can of soda that has been shaken up. And when you shake up a can of soda and you open it, it's got to go somewhere.
Yeah, it does.
The anger and the frustration has to go somewhere. It doesn't always go in an organized way. It doesn't always go where it wants to go or where it might be best suited to go. But it has to go somewhere.
Yes, it does.
And so that's sort of how it feels as we live this way. One way or another, I love Baltimore. I love that city.
Me
you
too.
and I have been there a million
Great
times.
city.
The first All-Star game I ever covered was in the city of Baltimore. It's a beautiful ballpark. Again, that's not what's important here. But it just makes me sad to see these events taking place in a wonderful city. And again, hopefully, I don't have a report on what's going on in the streets as we speak, but I hope that cooler heads will prevail and that we will be able to begin a healing process and that we will be able to begin the process of seeing to it that these sorts of things don't happen anymore and don't need to happen anymore, and we can all try and make it a little better one way or another.
Yeah, hopefully. We know it's never quite that easy, but that's the ending you want. And certainly, we'll talk about it from the baseball side, whether they move the game to Washington or what they do. But, this is the position we're in now.
Again, we will have Rob Manfred an hour from now, and we'll go through.
He was there.
He happened to be there last night. And when I say that, he didn't go there because this circumstance was taking place. He was going to be there anyway. It was coincidental that he was right in the center of all of this. For the record, he was on Baseball Tonight last night. Here's how his assessment of the situation was.
I was down in the clubhouses talking to the players on the two teams, and around 4:30, I first spoke to Luis Angelos and then to Peter. They had up-to-date information about what was going on. Obviously, we've been following on the television monitors in the stadium, and we had a series of conversations which led to the conclusion that we were going to postpone tonight.
And for those that are wondering, well, the proximity, the epicenter of this protest was less than a mile from the ballpark, so it's right there, everything that's going on.
Buck Showalter was also on Baseball Tonight with Carl Ravitch.
Baltimore's a great city, and it saddens my heart. I've come to love it. So to see it make national news, for the reason why this all happened, without getting too much into it, it's a sad day for all of us here, and we're
want to play for you, and then we'll go on to other matters this morning. Because obviously, we assume that if you want coverage of what's going on in Baltimore, you're going to find it in a lot of different places. And we'll get into the sports news of the day. But I did think this was interesting. Brittany Giroli is a reporter for MLB.com. And she was on the field doing her work, doing her reports and things like that. And then you'll hear her tell George Sedano last night on the Sedano show here on ESPN Radio what it was that happened with her.
When they called the game, you had to file your story and stick around. And, I was out on the field doing a TV thing real quick, and I had a police officer say to me, "Ma'am, you have to leave this stadium immediately." That's, I think, when it kind of hits home, like I might be in danger. Today's probably the day that it kind of hit me that this is a very dangerous situation. This is much, much bigger than our jobs and much bigger than baseball.
So now that
says it right there.
Yeah,
it really does.
It does. Yeah. I have been, now, the circumstances could not have been more different. But I have been in my life in one situation where there was chaos, where it did not feel like anyone was in charge. The Bulls won the championship. Now, again, we're talking about the celebration of a championship, which turned into a bunch of cars on fire and stuff like that, versus something here which is entirely different. In no way am I making a comparison between the circumstances that led to the chaos. But the Bulls win the championship in June of '92. They beat Portland in the old Chicago Stadium, which is a joyous. I mean, I was in there covering it. It was unbelievable. Jordan jumps up on the table. He said the celebration's fabulous. I was in the arena for probably a good hour and a half doing all my work after the game. And I walk out the rear exit of the old Chicago Stadium into what used to be, there was a parking lot there where my car was. And I look up, and to my astonishment, I had no idea. This was before social media. I didn't know there was anything going on outside. There were fires everywhere. People were just running. Cars are being turned over. And I stood there, and I was like, who's in charge here? And you realize no one's in charge here. And I just stood there, waited, saw what seemed like sort of a lull, got in my car and drove as fast as I could out of there. And so I will just say again, and under totally different circumstances, when you are in a place where there is total chaos going on, you're not accustomed to that in America. That almost never happens, and it's a very unsettling, frightening feeling.
I guess the comparison would be magnify that by a million as to now anger is involved and the reason for the fires and the looting and what's going on. Listen, all we can do is pray for everybody there and hope everybody stays safe, and certainly for the family of Freddie Gray and their loss, and hope that the real reason of the backlash there, and I don't mean all the negative, the fires and the looting, but, even if it's quiet protesting or even loud protesting to get, the point across, hopefully they get to the bottom of that. And there is justice one way or the other in that situation. But to me, it's always a shame when it leads to the fires and the looting and the rioting. And yesterday was really one of the first times it struck me and my wife and Jake sitting there that, wow, is the message getting lost here? And as you said correctly, it won't. It's not like it's buried forever. It just seemed to get pushed aside, and that's something that's a situation that doesn't need to get pushed aside.
Yep, far smarter people than the two of us will have to try and figure out some answers in a bigger picture to what is obviously becoming a major
yes, it is.
issue in our society in this day and age. Something that. Well, it breaks your heart when you really think about it. But anyway,
people are losing their lives. The bottom line is, people are losing their lives, and it's been happening at too much of a rate that's good for anybody, without question.
We'll have Rob Manfred again, who was there in an hour here on Mike and Mike, and again a full slate of all the regular sports conversation today, and I mean full. We got Herbie today on the NFL draft. We got Jason Stark with his trivia. We got Mark Dominik in our studio, a front office insider going through draft machinations. We got the Rangers general manager, Jon Daniels. They get Josh Hamilton back. Our old buddy Brian Kenny previewing the boxing for us as well. Jeff Hornacek, coach of the Suns, on the basketball. We're Mike and Mike, presented by Progressive Insurance. All our guests, as always, on the Subway Fresh Take Hotline. We'll get to some draft stuff for you in exactly 1 minute here on Mike and Mike after this word from 1-800-Flowers.com. Remember that Mother's Day is coming soon. Now is the time to show all the moms in our lives just how much we appreciate them, right? Our mothers, wives, mothers-in-law. Send them the best. A beautiful bouquet from 1-800-Flowers.com, the official florist of Mother's Day.
And here's a deal they are going to love. The Mother's Day Tulip Bouquet from 1-800-Flowers.com. Perfect for every mom and every everyone you have to get. And believe me, do it, gang. You want to keep up those brownie points. A beautiful bouquet of 30 multicolored spring tulips. Right now, 1-800-Flowers.com has this limited time offer available today only. Order the 30 tulip bouquet for $30. That's $20 off the regular price. Order by today to lock in this great deal, 30 tulips for $30 while supplies last. Go to 1-800-Flowers.com from your desktop or from your mobile device. Click on the radio microphone in the upper right corner and enter Mike. That's 1-800-Flowers.com and enter Mike, or call 1-800-Flowers and mention our first name.
Okay, Mike and Mike, I misspoke when I said we get to the draft. We will get to plenty on the draft, including John Gruden saying he wouldn't take Jameis Winston number one. You'll hear who he would take number one.
We got some other answers, though.
I wanted to get to the Kevin Love injury situation and the J.R. Smith decision, because we spent so much of the beginning, frankly, so much of all of our show yesterday talking about those. And by now, no doubt you've heard the news that Kevin Love has been ruled out basically at minimum for the second round. And usually when you hear an injury, you hear it's going to be X amount of time. Yesterday they announced that he's out for the next round. Now, the next round keeps becoming a little bit less certain because, in case you don't know, Milwaukee beat the Bulls last night in Chicago. So that series remains alive. But the next round wasn't going to start until this coming weekend at soonest anyway.
Right.
But one way or another, Kevin Love is out for the entirety of the next series after dislocating the shoulder. And when you factor in, here's where I wanted to go back to our discussion of yesterday. Again, no one knows shoulder injuries like Golic. He had 10 shoulder surgeries during his NFL career. He's his pending free agency, I think, also has to play into this somewhere, right? Tell me again, if he comes back, let's say he gets back as fast as he possibly can.
Right.
They do absolutely everything they can to get the shoulder as healthy and as ready as he possibly can. In your opinion, and again, it's not a medical opinion, but it's a patient's opinion, does he put himself at greater jeopardy for having that come out, whatever the word is?
Unless it's fully healed 100%, which it won't be if he's going to come back in that time frame. You're susceptible to having it pop out again. That's where it led to for me, because I didn't want to get it taken care of till after the season. So it would, each time it pops out a little easier, called subluxing. And, it pops out, but then it slides back in a little easier as well. That first time is hellish, as he found out, and talked about how when it went back in, he felt such relief. And you do. You absolutely do. And you feel like, okay, I'm fine, but you're not. So maybe finding out, the initial report from Brian Windhorst was 2 weeks. So we thought that might be, 3 or 4 games, depending on when the series started. To come back, but a lot of it had to be based off the MRI. And now they're saying, but the one thing is we didn't know is when the start of the series, but what we do know is the back end. So Greeny, it would be give or take a few days, right, to know kind of the time frame of the second round.
Yes.
So you start to put 2 and 2 together. You say they did the MRI, and now we have the new timetable of missing the whole second round. So was there some damage to the labrum in there? That's what you're looking at. Was there damage to any of the ligaments in there? If so, how much? And then you rehab it. Again, the rehab, first it's letting it all calm down before you start the rehab, and there are ways from harnesses to compression shirts to keep it kind of locked in a little bit better. But still, when you're shooting, your arms are going, you saw the arms locking all the time. When you go underneath, that's not the first or last time it's going to happen. You have to reach up. You're talking this thing popped out of joint, so any movement you have, that obviously the joint is sliding and moving in there. So could it be susceptible to coming out again? Yes. And then now you're talking about a situation where time could heal it. If it were to happen again, are you now saying, okay, maybe we're going to need surgery now? Maybe you're going to need labrum surgery now. And then what does that do to your offseason? And then if your offseason may include trying to go get a max deal somewhere else, what does it do to that? These are.
And is it unreasonable to think that he's going to be thinking that way or should be thinking that way? I understand you got a playoff run, you got a potential championship run. He does have a player option. Technically, he doesn't have to become a free agent after this season. He has a player option. So he can opt in for $16.7 million.
Right.
Have that money guaranteed and on the table. Figure a year from now, we'll worry about it then.
Right.
Get back as fast as he can now and try and help his team win a championship. That's option. I'm not going to say it's option number one. It's up to him to decide what's option number one. That is an option.
To say that's not thought of would be a naive thing to say. Everybody knows where their position is and what they have in front of them. and the possibility like this of re-injuring and what was once rehab now could lead to surgery if you hurt it again, that's real. Yeah, absolutely. Now, you have to decide, even if he were to have that, is he still a guy another team is going to want labrum surgery? You fix that. Still can be a max guy. He's shown what he can do, certainly in Minnesota, and we all understand how he's being used in Cleveland. So do you still feel like, you know what, I've shown enough that even if I have to get this worked on, I'm still going to be okay with a max deal? Not to say that you want to go through that. I think in most players' minds, at least maybe this is me more wanting to believe it, that their thought process is, let me get back on the court and help my team win a championship.
All right, we are Mike and Mike. That's obviously one of the big stories out of the basketball off the court. The other is J.R. Smith.
Yep.
The suspension comes down, and I think it's the right one. It's what I expected.
It's what you said.
I thought one game would have been a little based on his history. You know, a lot of that factors into this. Mm-hmm. I think if a player who had never been involved in any kind of an issue before did exactly what J.R. Smith did, especially when you consider sort of where that game had gotten to from
maybe
a physicality standpoint, it would have been one game. Based upon his history, I mean, again, same building, same opponent, 2 years to the day, I'm not surprised it was more than one game.
There's part of me that almost feels like they were kind of fortunate, don't you? Because we had, was it Brucey yesterday? Somebody I had heard to talk possibly 3-4 games, maybe more.
I think it wasn't Bruce, but someone did say that, yes.
Dave McMenamin.
McMenamin,
I was going to say it wouldn't be Bruce.
Bruce thought it should have been the quarter.
What am I saying?
Yeah.
But so that's what you look forward to. Now, the Bulls all of a sudden are in this little struggle fest. They couldn't seem to put the ball in the basket, in the peach basket last night at all. The shooting was horrific. And give credit to the Bucks. They're down 3-0 in this series. Now it's 3-2. So they extend this series a little bit. But now you're looking at the Cavaliers facing probably, I feel pretty safe to say, since nobody's come back 3 down, that it's going to be the Bulls. But certainly no Kevin Love and no J.R. Smith for the first 2 games.
The best of Mike and Mike.
Mike and Mike.
Guys, when you buy your clothes at DXL, you look good. But you feel like a rock star. So if you want to look and feel like you'll find all the brands you love, waist size 38 and up, all in one awesome store. DXL. You're looking good. Right now, select dress shirts are just $49.50 each when you buy 2 or more.
The best of Mike and Mike.
Mike and Mike.
Yeah, busy day on so many different fronts. An unbelievable week in the world of sports. All of it seems comparatively insignificant when you see the images coming out of the city of Baltimore. Again, as we open the show by saying this morning, our thoughts are with everybody there. We hope that you're safe. We hope that you're all right. We hope that somehow, some way, cooler heads will prevail in every possible way, and we can come up with constructive answers to some of the problems that we clearly face. We're Mike and Mike, presented by Progressive Insurance. The commissioner of baseball was there last night. Rob Manfred will join us live in 10 minutes on the Subway Fresh Take Hotline with his thoughts. I'm looking at some of the reaction coming in on Twitter. And listen, I understand. You can't listen every second of the show and all that kind of stuff. But, for example, I got one here from Scott Elmore who tweets, "This is garbage. You want Greg Hardy gone, but explain away Mayweather. Hypocrisy at its height." I don't know who you're listening to. There may be some people who want Greg Hardy gone. If you listen to Mike Golic's rant, which was everywhere last week, Mike, you couldn't have been clearer in saying you want there to be ramifications.
Yes.
And then he should be allowed to come back and play.
Absolutely
right.
You
couldn't have been clearer.
Absolutely right. Sit for your 10 games. If it's less than that, so be it. And then afterward, come back and go to work. He's a great pass rusher. And with Floyd Mayweather, whatever sanctions were against him, and in boxing there were none. If anybody had the power to do anything, from the Nevada Boxing Commission to whoever, one of the alphabet soup situations, they didn't. So he was never suspended there. He served whatever time, whether you think it was fair or not. He went through the law part of this thing and is where he is, which is in a ring boxing. So if he got suspended for however long, then I would say the same thing. Good. You can't fight, you can't make money, you can't do your thing, and when that suspension is up, go fight and do your thing. I mean, I don't think I could have been more clear about that. In this situation, he's got a horrible litany of things against him of what he's done. He served whatever time he had to. There are still things out there about him, but he's allowed to go fight. So go fight. And then it's up to everybody to choose whether they want to buy the fight or not. What's different is you're watching the Dallas Cowboys and Greg Hardy is a part of that, or you're watching a fight where only two people are involved, so you know you're giving a lot of your money to one of those people that you may not particularly like. That I don't particularly like is certainly seeing what he's done, but I'm going to watch the fight. I'm going to watch this fight, and I hope it's a great fight.
Lorraine tweets, if we as a society still lift these people up despite their actions will never change. And then I have a few here. Jake Roberts tweets, I vote for Teddy Atlas for boxing commissioner, and I will second that one. How about it? Please keep the Twitter reaction coming of all sorts, agreeing with us, disagreeing with us. That's what makes the conversation worth having. Through the 1-800-Flowers.com Twitter feed, be the reason Mom smiles this Mother's Day. Go to 1-800-Flowers.com/ESPN for special offers on Mother's Day flowers. Okay, John Gruden, if you go to ESPN.com, John sat down with our Mike Sando, our NFL insider, and just sort of went through some of the players after he has gone through hours and hours and hours of tape and chosen the players that he likes most in this draft. And at number one, he likes Marcus Mariota. Mm-hmm. And here's what he says. I don't understand why he isn't the number one player in this draft on Mel Kiper's big board. I don't know anybody in this draft that can do for a football team what Mariota can do. He can read the field. That whole thing about Oregon being a no-huddle dive option team, that is just a narrative resulting from a lack of information. The Ducks run a lot of pro-style concepts. Mariota does a lot with the protections. I've seen him throw the ball with touch and timing in tight windows. Mariota is the same size as Jameis Winston. He runs a 4.5 240. He's incredibly elusive, and man, is he a playmaker and a great competitor. I see him functioning in the pocket, out of the pocket, and if you want to run a zone read, he'll rip the defense apart. He is like Russell Wilson, only he's 6'4". That's John Gruden on Marcus Mariota.
Yeah, listen, and he's certainly entitled to his opinion. You know the thing about it is, that tape out there, we all see the same tape. There's no tape he's watching that I'm not watching or anybody else who is breaking down these guys isn't watching. So he sees the tape and he sees that. I watch the tape and I don't see it as that, as good as that. I don't. You know, to say someone's going to rip a read option apart, we've thought that of the last couple of great runners that came in the game, how well that worked. They're not even running anymore. They got hurt running. So to say someone's going to come in and rip it up, sorry.
Well, Wilson does it. Right, Wilson does it, at least a little.
Well, Wilson does, yes, Wilson right? does do it.
So and he's been in the last two Super Bowls, so it can be done.
And that is the biggest comparison, is he is a bigger Russell Wilson. Now, what does Russell Wilson have that if Marcus Mariota goes number 2 in the draft, he's not going to have?
But a great running game?
The top running game, and when everybody is concerned about Marshawn Lynch, that helps the read option game an awful lot. I don't want to take anything away from Russell Wilson and what he does, but let's also look at the amount of how free he is when he breaks to those read option runs at times.
The one thing I'll say is, when RG3 was running that, it was extremely effective. The difference in RG3 and Russell Wilson was, RG3 was very bad at not getting hit.
Yes, he was.
And Russell Wilson is very good at not getting hit. So if Marcus Mariota can run that and be good like Russell Wilson is at not getting hit, they can be effective.
My point is, it can be effective, but it's effective for Russell Wilson a lot because of Marshawn Lynch in the running game. And there's only one top running game and 5 top 5 running games, and the Tennessee Titans aren't one of them if he goes there. So that makes it less effective at times. And you know what else can make it effective? Obviously a good running game, but a good passing game. I see holes in his passing game. Listen, do I think he could end up being a great quarterback? He possibly could. He's got unbelievably great athletic ability. He's a smart kid. You know he's going to put in the time, but I would not have him number 1 on my board. I see the exact same film John Gruden has, and those want to say, well, I'll trust John over me. That's fine. But with that, every single person like myself and others who break players down, we all have access to the tape. We all look at the tape, and we all get our impressions from the tape.
John was on our show in February, so he didn't just fall in love with Mariota. This is what he said about him then.
I know this about Mariota. He played really good for Helfrich at Oregon without Chip Kelly. They average almost 50 points a game. He's 6'5". He ran 4.5. He has suddenness, quickness. He's a quick thinker, and I've seen him throw the ball in tight windows. If you don't like Marcus Mariota, you don't like human beings, Mike.
That was not Frank Caliendo.
No, that was
John.
That was John.
So he's loved Mariota since then.
You look at him, and you look at his size and his speed and athletic ability, you absolutely fall in love with him, but there are parts of his game I have question at. I know I'm not alone. There are plenty of others who have question about it as well. Now, if he comes into the league and answers those questions, he could be a great quarterback. But you could say that about everybody without question. But this is who we're talking about right now. Some of the things I see him do in college, I don't think he's going to be able to do in the NFL, but time will tell.
The next player that John loves in this draft is Dante Fowler Jr., who's one of these edge rush guys from Florida, but he's the big one. And he says, in this draft, I just don't see anyone who has the playing style of Fowler. I love people who physically intimidate you, and Fowler brings a presence to the field. You don't want to play against him. If you're a quarterback or a running back, you know where he is. I promise you that. So he goes on into some fairly lengthy description of why he loves him, but in a draft filled with a bunch of really good defensive linemen and defensive edge rushers, he picks out Dante Fowler and likes him a lot.
If you go back, and maybe you could look at it, when he came into the league his rookie year, what was the size of Dwight Freeney? And I have a feeling if you look at his size, what he measured at the combine, you're going to see just about the same measurements from Dante Fowler, a guy who is a quick edge rusher. Now, I'm not saying he's going to be that fast like Freeney, but he's pretty versatile. Hand in the ground, 2-point stance from a linebacker position as well. Unbelievable athlete. So let's see. I think his numbers certainly don't compare. Remember, Freeney was, I believe it was 6'2", about 260, ran like a 4.340. It was something ridiculous. Now, Fowler isn't that fast out of the gate, but he is an athlete coming around the corner and the versatility he has as well. So I agree. Leonard Williams is that defensive lineman, that 300-pounder that could play across the line. And then you have, obviously, Dante Fowler, who is an incredible athlete.
Okay, I'm told the commissioner's ready to go. So let's do 1 minute here for 1-800-Flyers. We'll get back to a lot of John Gruden's thoughts and some more on the upcoming draft. We've got Kirk Herbstreit coming today, Jason Stark with his baseball trivia, and a whole lot more. But the commissioner of baseball is ready to go. He'll join us in exactly 1 minute after this word from 1-800-Flowers.com. Mike, Mother's Day is coming soon, so now is the time to show all the moms in our lives just how much we appreciate them, our mothers, our wives, our mothers-in-law. Send them the best, a beautiful bouquet from 1-800-Flowers.com, the official florist of Mother's Day.
Make sure you send them all out to everybody you need to, and it's a Mother's Day tulip bouquet. That's the special deal from 1-800-Flowers.com right now for our listeners and our viewers. A beautiful bouquet of 30 multicolored spring tulips. It's a limited-time offer available today only. Order the 30 tulip bouquet for $30. That's $20 off the regular price. Order by today to lock in the deal. 30 tulips, $30 while supplies last. Go to 1-800-Flowers.com from your desktop or your mobile device. Click on the radio microphone in the upper right corner and enter Mike. That's 1-800-Flowers.com and enter Mike, or call 1-800-Flowers and mention our first name.
Mike and Mike is presented by Progressive Insurance. He was in Baltimore last night, coincidentally, if you will, on other matters, and thus happened to be there during the events in the city of Baltimore last night. Again, our thoughts are with everybody in Baltimore, and the postponement of a baseball game, and the big picture is obviously low on the list of significant events there. But let's go through that decision and others with the Commissioner of Major League Baseball, Rob Manfred, who joins us on Mike and Mike. Good morning, Commissioner. How are you today?
Good morning, Mike. How are you?
We're well. So I think our listeners would be interested to hear just from the very beginning of the process how a decision like that gets made, who it is you're consulting with, who you're hearing from, what roles everyone involved plays. Just sort of take us through the day yesterday that ultimately led to your decision to postpone the game last night.
Well, it was an interesting day. I got to Baltimore about 2 o'clock, and things were calm at 2 o'clock. I went over to the ballpark, and as the day unfolded, we started to see reports on the monitors around the ballpark. It's important to remember with a regular season game that the decision as to whether or not it's played rests fundamentally with the home team. As the situation worsened in the later afternoon, I was down in the Orioles clubhouse with Buck Showalter, Dan Duquette. I spoke by phone to Los Angeles and then to Peter and got various reports on the situation. And frankly, as it developed, it was not a hard decision to make. Everyone was on the same page that it made no sense to go ahead and try to play last night.
So then that game obviously postponed last night. There's a game tonight. When will there be a decision on where and if that game will be played?
We'll make a decision at some point this morning. We talked late last night. I was on the phone with Mr. Angelos after I got back to New York. And it just did not make sense last night to try to make a decision on today's game. The situation was so fluid; it was developing as we were talking, and we decided it was most prudent to wait till this morning, make a decision about today and tomorrow at some point during the day today.
Yeah, and you figure some of it might seem obvious, but just what would be the list of things you're taking into consideration? I have to believe first and foremost is everyone's safety and security, including those of the fans who are traveling to and from the ballpark, and then obviously the security that is required to put on a baseball game. That presence might be required somewhere else. What are some of the factors that go into these decisions?
Well, Mike, you did a good job. I mean, first and foremost, we worry about the fans, their ability to get in and out of the ballpark. But it's also important to remember that we have players, umpires, and a lot of day-game staff that are in the ballpark. We want to make sure that they're safe, that we're not putting them at risk. And obviously, we want to comply with whatever curfews and whatnot have been put in place in order to ensure the public safety. Once you get past that, it becomes an issue of trying to complete the schedule in a timely way. As you know, we play 162 games in 183 days. Cancellations are difficult for us. And so as we move forward, we'll have to consider alternatives that are focused more on getting the games played as opposed to exactly how many fans are going to be able to see the games.
So as you were talking to both teams, whether it's players, managers, GMs, even the umpires involved as well, in those discussions, was there give and take on why the game possibly should be played, or was it everybody on the same page that this one needs to be postponed?
Honestly, there was not 1 second of debate on this issue. We almost immediately, everyone accepted as we watched what was unfolding, that the game could not be played, and the focus then becomes, getting people safely out of the stadium and to begin thinking about the contingencies for getting the games played after last night.
Mike, Rob Manfred, the commissioner of baseball, again, was there in Baltimore yesterday. The decision made to postpone the game. You just heard him say they'll talk at some point this morning and make a decision on whether or not today's game will be played, and if so, where it will be played. Just quickly while we have you, Commissioner, a couple of other things of interest that are going on. We've seen a couple of pitchers get hurt batting in the last couple of days, or on offensive circumstances. Adam Wainwright in what is a terrible blow to St. Louis, and Max Scherzer with an injury. And it sort of brought up a renewed debate about the role of the designated hitter and whether or not we could move that to the National League as well. Has that debate or this conversation that has come up in the last couple of days reached your office yet? What are you hearing?
Well, I certainly am aware of press reports about the consideration of moving the DH to the National League because of these two injuries. I try not to be too swayed by, particular events that happen in a given season. My view on the DH is that the difference between the two leagues is actually a point of debate among our fans, and that those sorts of debate are good for the game over the long haul.
I guess one thing to add to that, and I thought that as well, could you let one decision kind of, make that decision to possibly a rule change? But we did see Buster Posey blow out an ankle, and not too much long after that, there was a rule about blocking the plate. So there are a lot of people. Yep.
Well, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I apologize. The debate about the collision rule at home plate had gone on much longer than just the Posey injury. And quite frankly, we were more concerned about concussions when we changed that rule than we were about the type of injury that happened to Buster. Obviously, we don't want to see anybody get hurt, but the collision rule was about concussions.
Mike, Rob Manfred is with us. The other discussion that has come up a lot lately, Pete Rose gets hired by Fox. We had you in here a couple of months ago, and I asked you about Pete Rose, and you said that you had heard something from, I believe at that time you had heard something from his representatives. You were anticipating having more conversation about it. He's been hired by Fox now, which is a much more public step back into the game than he's had in the past. The All-Star game is in Cincinnati. A lot of people are looking at that and maybe adding up 2 and 2 and getting 5. Where do you stand right now as far as Pete Rose?
The Pete Rose situation really hasn't changed since I talked to you the last time. We are in dialogue with Pete's representatives about the process, how it's moving forward. We're doing a lot of internal work in terms of making sure We understand the original investigation and everything that went into Commissioner Giamatti's thinking at that time. But the Fox hiring was a Fox decision. The band never applied to a job like that, and he had every right to take the job, and Fox had every right to hire him. But it doesn't bear on my thinking really one way or the other.
And then finally, just one more quickly. We've seen the moves that were made during this offseason in an effort to speed up the game. It's, we've got about a month's worth of sample now or whatever it is. How do you feel it's working?
I'm very positive about our pace of game efforts to date. I have not focused on game time as the be-all and end-all, but I can't resist pointing out that we're down 8 or 9 minutes on average. I think the games have been brisker. Our people who are out in the field, the Joe Torres, the Jim Linglands watching games, seem to agree with that evaluation. And I was in 2 clubhouses last night. The players really continue to be positive about the effort. And when you have the players on your side on a topic like this, you're in pretty good shape.
All right, Commissioner, we appreciate the time. Obviously, yesterday, a very disturbing day across the country for reasons well beyond baseball. We look forward to talking again on a more cheerful morning. Thanks for some time today.
Thank you.
Always great to talk to both of you, even on a sad day. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Commissioner. Rob Manfred with us on Mike and Mike on the Subway Fresh Take Hotline. Again, with thoughts on a variety of issues, the Orioles situation.
And certainly wanted to ask him about the other issues, but the top is when you have to postpone a game for these reasons, for what's going on, again, in the real world and real life situations and problems and issues. I mean, that's I'm glad, and I figured they would be all on the same page to say, you know what, this is not even worth a whole lot of discussion here once they saw where the day was going.
Look, there are so many things going on there that you can't be having people traveling to and from the ballpark. You can't be taking all of the security personnel that are required. I mean, there's a significant police presence at every major sporting event. You can't be taking those people I'm going to use the word resources because I can't think of a better one, that are so obviously necessary in other places to come play a baseball game. Now, everyone has their own concerns, of course. Right. As he said, they have a very limited window in which to play these games. So if you're going to play them, where are you going to play them? You heard him say we may have to start making decisions that will not take as much into account how many fans are going to get a chance to go see these games. That's a reality of it.
You are bound by the calendar. There's no doubt about that. So as you heard him say this morning, they'll make a decision. They have 2 more games, a game today and game tomorrow that they're going to have to make a decision about. And I would imagine the decision today would be about both games. Not just today's game, and then we'll see about tomorrow's game. Like if they have to move today's game to Washington, would they then try and move tomorrow's game back to Baltimore? I know it's obviously not a long trip or anything like that. Or would you make the decision today based on the next 2 games as a group?
And as you heard him say, it is regular season games. Those decisions in the postseason are made by Major League Baseball. Those decisions in the regular season, usually they involve weather, are made by the home team, first and foremost by the home team. So it's the ownership of the Orioles that largely will be at the center of that.
Yeah. I was just going to say a couple of things. The rest of the stuff, I mean, the Pete Rose, there's always that all-star game thing hanging there. I get what he's saying. He doesn't want to be bound by that, but that's just laying there. Where baseball has already given the Reds permission to use him for the all-star game, and it sets up, if he was going to be reinstated, the perfect platform to do it. But I'm sure the commissioner doesn't want to be bound by that time frame either. And that's got to be a little tug of war going on there.
He doesn't want to make a rash decision based on a couple of pitcher injuries based on the designated hitter. I have mixed feelings on that, on the DH thing. I've started to come around a little bit to the other side. I've always been more of a National League style fan than an American League style fan, if you will. I'm starting to come around to the other side of that a little bit.
I'm not going to lie. One of the reasons that I like the pitchers batting is the fact that, all the shenanigans going on about, this is how we answer your home run or your thing.
He's got to stand there.
Now you got to go stand in there and take your whooping. If you're going to give it out, you got to take it. There's something about it that says, you know what, I'd like to see that. The other thing is what you brought up the stat, I think it was yesterday, the pitchers are hitting 0.89.
0.89.
I mean, that's horrific. It's horrible to sit there and watch them do that. And then also on the speed of the game, I like every time you say speed of the game, I agree with him. He changes it to pace of play. And I agree. It's not so much that the games are, 8 minutes faster. During the game, if it seems like the pace is moving faster, to me, that's the important thing. And I think that they are accomplishing that.
The best of Mike and Mike.
draft insider, our front office insider, Mark Dominik, is with us in our studio now. You'll see him on NFL Insiders today, 3 Eastern on ESPN. I want to start with this, Mark. So you've got the number 1 pick.
Yep.
At what point in the process have you made up your mind, we're taking him, and we're not even taking phone calls? I guess what I'm saying is, if the Buccaneers have decided they want to take Winston, they've chosen him over Mariota and whatever else the case may be, will they still be answering the phone right up until the moment they are on the clock, right until the moment they hand in the envelope? Is that your anticipation that a trade is still possible if someone just bowls them over?
I think it is. And the only reason I say that is because they held on to Mike Glennon. They have not traded Mike Glennon. They benched him last year, but they let go of Josh McCown. So that tells me there's a lot of, at least, like of Glennon. And if you got blown away by a trade, blown away, RG3 bigger, then I think that's where you sit there and say, okay, should we make this trade? We could still go with Glennon for a year. We'll have multiple picks in the future years. And that's the only chance. But I think this is in the bed and putting the hay in the barn, but that's what I think.
Are you saying about the possibility, are you talking about now draft day? Is this when they're on the clock, and that's when the last decisions have to be made, when the phone, if it's going to ring, is probably going to ring, or will everything be done before that?
I think it'll be done before that, Mike, because that kind of a trade just doesn't happen on the clock, because I think you want to give the team a chance to really absorb what you're asking and have a chance to have going back and forth. So if it's something big is going to happen, I think it's going to have to happen right away. Like in the next day is when the discussions will start for that pick, but I really don't think that trade's coming in.
Same question with 2.
Same question with 2. I think Tennessee, personally, I think no matter what, Tennessee's going to walk out of this quarterback. I don't think they're going to walk out of this draft class without one. I don't think they can. I like Zach Mettenberger, but I can't trust him to stay healthy. For 2 straight years, he's been injured. And then we got Charlie Whitehurst behind him. So now you have a chance, either you're trading for Rivers, which I personally still won't let that go away in my own internal mindset of how that makes a lot of sense for both sides, or you're just going to put the card in for Mariota.
And quite honestly, just to get it out there, it would be a no-brainer. If there's the option of trading for Rivers or not trading for him and taking Mariota, you're trading for Rivers, correct?
I think you are, because if you go through in your mind, you play this scenario out from Tennessee's standpoint, and you make the trade in your mind. You kind of walk through these things as a GM. Now, if I walk myself over to Tom Telesco's office and make that trade, it's a lot harder to make from that perspective, because you know what you have. I mean, you have a proven commodity at quarterback who's had a lot of success. And so that's why I think it's a very hard trade to make happen.
All right, so now in Todd McShay's last mock draft, at number 5 to the Redskins, he had the outside backer from Missouri, Shane Ray. Okay? Shane Ray just pulled over for a speeding violation. Officer went to the car, smelled marijuana. Turns out he was possessing marijuana. Cited for a misdemeanor possession of 35 grams or less of marijuana. Now, while I understand marijuana is being lessened as far as discipline, it's still against the law right now. And you go to Randy Gregory, another outside backer who tested positive at the combine and failed the stupidity test by doing that. And now this. So you're driving in a car, you get pulled over, you have marijuana in the car. So now you're in the front office of the Washington Redskins. You on your board have Shane Ray as the guy. What happens today?
This is why the board is never set. It is never set, and you can never sit there and say, I never liked it when you sat there and said, well, we've had our board set for the last month, we're ready to draft. No, you're not, because you never know when things like this will happen. This changes Shane Ray dramatically.
Okay.
Because to me, it's such a poor decision this close to the draft.
It's not so much the misdemeanor.
No, it has nothing. It's the decision making.
Yep.
Yes, and it's just like, what is this kid going to do on Friday or Saturday night before a big game? Is he going to make another poor choice like this? And that's what you have to factor into it. So, yeah, Mike, I'm not condoning the marijuana, but it's the timing is so bad that and the foot issue tells me that this guy's not even dropping out of the first round. I think this guy's dropping to the 3rd or 4th round now.
Really? Because again,
3rd or 4th round.
I think this is going to severely affect him because of how poor the judgment is by him.
Again, to say he did not perform at the combine. The doctors there said with his foot injury he did. So he did have the foot as well. So as far as you're concerned, like here at number 5, is he now off your board?
Not off the board. I would never take him off the board.
Not off the board.
But what I'm doing today, my entire day is Shane Ray Day. Thankfully to Shane Ray. If I'm a GM of any club, all 32, Shane Ray just made my day a lot of work. If you're really trying to be prepared for the draft. And that's trying to get as much information about this situation that just happened. It's making sure you're comfortable with where the medical is, and then re-slotting them on your board where you sit there and say to the owner, I feel good about this pick, because it's not just that's a organizational decision now. It's not just a
2nd or 3rd round.
Oh, easy. I think it knocks him out of the first.
Though. I mean, that's again, I understand what you're saying. And I saw what Louis Riddick tweeted yesterday about how it's just, I forget, I don't want to put words in his mouth, just indescribably stupid thing to do. And I totally get that. I totally get that. But at the end of the day, I mean, people think that half the league is smoking weed. They don't care. This guy's that kind of good. You're going to get him on the second
It's amazing.
round.
That's where you went. What a steal when a lot of people are going, especially Shane Ray, are going to go, what an idiot.
Well, I get that.
Do to
That's
yourself.
a given.
Yeah.
I get the given.
Yeah.
I mean, the idiot part is a given. I understand it's an idiotic thing to do. But now all of a sudden you're getting a top 8 talent in the second or third round whose citation for this is for something that like half the league is doing anyway.
But it's not about that.
It's about the idiotic
about
judgment.
the decision.
I understand that.
The number one thing when we talk about this all the time about ability is availability.
Yeah,
you better be able to be there and play. And if this guy starts making these choices, he's going to be suspended by the commission. I don't care how talented he is. He's not on the football field.
Doesn't matter.
So it doesn't really matter. So that's where I think clubs are really. I think he gets hit hard. And I personally hit him hard because I just sit there and say, again, I don't think people are as comfortable with the foot as a lot of people want to say they are, number one. And then number two, this just shows such a lack of judgment. I think it's going to severely affect Shane Ray.
It just stuns me at the lack of judgment. Just
I was miserable for him because he's been through here. And
he's been through it.
And you hear his story. And it's just like you just feel terrible for him. But then you sit there and say, these guys do it to themselves.
They do. Yep.
Mark Dominik is here in studio. His Subway Fresh Take. Try the new Turkey Italiano melt at Subway today. Subway, eat fresh. There's a Sports Center special today. The GM's Roundtable. That's today at 1:30 Eastern on ESPN. You're going to shake that thing up by saying Shane Ray's dropping to the third round?
Absolutely. I'm confident. I know it sounds surprising. I know he's dropping out of the first. I don't see any way he's going in the first round.
Wow. What he just cost himself. A number 5 pick. Understand the number 1 pick in the draft is guaranteed about $25 million. So I don't know how quickly we can find out what the number 5 pick in the draft is guaranteed. Got to be what, in the high teens, in the teens of millions of dollars. You're guaranteed, and he just gave that up.
We'll see. And if so, he could be a steal on that second round. I'm in. Mark Dominik, thank you very much. Great to see you.
Thanks for taking the jacket off for the second.
Thanks for delivering my oatmeal this morning. You came in bearing oatmeal. Delightful.
More you can do around
there you go.
Mike and Mike.
ESPN Radio, bringing you directly to the biggest events in sports.
Center field, will hit, Hunter back, out of here!
From opening day of baseball,
From the plate, safe at the plate!
right through the World Series.
For the third time in 5 seasons, the San Francisco Giants are the champions of the baseball world.
Whether it's LeBron, Chris Paul, or Kevin Durant, when the NBA tips off, ESPN Radio is right there when a champion is crowned.
We have a new world champion. The San Antonio Spurs are the world champions.
And when the magic of bowl season arrives, ESPN Radio is your home for the new college football playoff.
The college football playoff first national champion, the Ohio State Buckeyes.
The biggest events in sports can be found right here on ESPN Radio.
Mike and Mike.
Well, a really busy hour with us here, presented by Progressive Insurance. We're going to have Texas Rangers General Manager Jon Daniels in a couple of minutes on the Subway Fresh Take Hotline. They reacquired Josh Hamilton yesterday. We'll have our old buddy Brian Kenny, who worked here for years now at MLB Network and knows as much. He's as good on boxing as anybody you know. So I'm really looking forward to talking with him. We'll go through all the stuff with the fight with him. Jeff Hornacek, coach of the Suns, a little bit later, breaking down all of that and a whole lot more. So lots to get to here. Quickly, Shane, is he ready to go now? Are you telling me that he's on there now? Okay, so you want to do that first? Quickly, let's do that, and we'll just change around the order of some things. Jon Daniels is ready to go. They reacquired Josh Hamilton yesterday after things just went horribly wrong for Hamilton for whatever reason with the Angels. And that seems to have been owner-driven, and as we said with Jason Stark earlier, I really don't understand Artie Moreno's perspective on this, but for one reason or another, he chose to decide we're getting rid of Hamilton no matter what. And as a result, they basically give him back to Texas and pay him almost all of the money. Josh Hamilton yesterday said...
Looking back on it, now if I could change the past, I would, but I can't. I can only learn from it. I probably wouldn't have gone anywhere. I probably would have stayed here. But I can't change that. I'm happy to be back now. Like I said, I've learned things over the last couple of years, and I'll take that forward and try to be a better man and, a father and player on the field. That's why I chose here.
All right, so that's Josh Hamilton again now on his way back to Texas, and joining us is the Rangers general manager. Jon Daniels on the Subway Fresh Take Hotline. John, thank you for the time this morning. Let's just jump right into it. Can you take us through the process by which this deal took place as you reacquire Josh Hamilton and the Angels basically pick up almost all of the money he has remaining on his contract?
Sure. We had talked with the Angels. I've got a good relationship with Jerry and have for a while. And we talked briefly in the off season. Nothing really came of it. Really started to pick up more in earnest in spring training after the arbitrator ruled on his situation, and then it kind of came to a head here in the last 10 days, 2 weeks. But I think they were looking for a kind of a graceful breakup, so to speak, and Josh wanted to be here. He had the no trade, so he could help kind of direct it. And we've had a good experience with Josh. We know him well, and it was a situation where we just viewed the upside reward was significantly bigger than the risk we were going to take on.
What is the thought process as where he is as a player? From the relapse off the field to the injury to the shoulder as well. What kind of player in person do you think you're getting back?
No, I think it's a very fair question, Mike. And listen, I don't know that he is going to put up the MVP numbers he put up when he was here previously. I know what the odds would be on that, and obviously he's a few years older. He's had the thumb injury, he's had the shoulder injury. He didn't perform well in Anaheim, and well aware of all those things. I think at the end of the day, though, this is a pretty unique guy. I mean, this is a guy that sat out for 4 years with a very serious drug addiction issue, and came back and was the best player in the game. And so I don't think that the normal rules apply with Josh. I think he's going to be a productive player for us, whether he gets back to that high level. I can't sit here and say, although honestly with Josh, nothing would shock me. He's in great shape, 100% cleared to go. He hasn't really had a spring training yet. He's swung the bat a lot, done some kind of basic stuff, getting ready, lifting, those sort of things, but hasn't really run the bases, had spikes on. He's not in playing shape yet, but he's in very good shape. And I think he's in a good state of mind. And when you put those two things together with Josh, he usually produces.
Mike and Mike is presented by Progressive Insurance. Customers who switch to Progressive save an average of $500. Call or click today. Find out if they can save you hundreds on your car insurance. Jon Daniels is the general manager of the Texas Rangers. And by all accounts, Josh Hamilton is a very likable person. We've had him on a handful of times. I've always enjoyed it. Don't know him well. But people around him say that he's a very likable person who is obviously very troubled. Jason Stark talked this morning with us about how perhaps with the Angels they never had the proper support system around him. Can you describe for our listeners what that entails? What sort of support system do you anticipate you will have around Josh Hamilton within your organization that will give him the best chance to succeed?
Yeah, I think the first thing I'd say to that, though, is we're all accountable for ourselves, and Josh is as well. And no matter what kind of support system you put in place, if somebody's going to get into trouble, I mean, there's always ways to find your way into trouble, wherever you are, whatever the situation is. I think it really starts with Josh's state of mind, where he is in his life, what's going on in his personal life, and I don't really think it's fair to put it all on the Angels that they did or didn't do certain things. I think Josh was just in a period of time for a couple of years where he had some things going on off the field that he just personally wasn't in the best place, and so I bristle a little bit. I feel for the Angels that they're wearing that it's all on them. I don't think that's fair. As far as what we're going to do, he will have a person with him on the road. In the past, that person had been in the clubhouse, on the field, during BP, things like that. We're not going to do that this time around. I don't think Josh needs anybody with him when he's with his teammates, when he's playing, that's when he's in the best place, I think. But he'll travel with us, fly with us, and stay at a hotel with us, and just kind of be available for Josh on the road. I think the biggest thing is just having the team leaders that have been here before, the Adrian Beltres and that group that know Josh well, the organization that knows him well, and the community that knows him well, and I think wants to embrace him. So it's more about just kind of collectively supporting him, embracing who he is, and those sort of things. But again, I don't think it's on any one person. He used that term accountability partner. I've never really liked that term because I think it implies that the accountability is then not on Josh, when obviously it is, but we're all accountable for ourselves.
And that's from the team side. When Josh left there to go to the Angels, it wasn't a great ending. He was booed a lot by the fans. And when he left, he said Dallas wasn't really a baseball town. Now he's coming back. What kind of work does he have to do to win those fans back?
I think he did a lot of it yesterday. I thought he spoke from the heart and was pretty open about it. And he said, "Hey, I said some stupid things. The baseball town comment was a dumb thing to say," and he had addressed that and apologized for that. I personally never had that big of an issue with it. I mean, it was a little bit of a slap in the face, but we had fun with it. When he came into town, back with the Angels, we had up on the video board, "Welcome to baseball town." The fans booed the heck out of him, and so I think the organization, it was kind of a back and forth thing. Personally, I think those are kind of small issues. He got booed at the end of the year. Through middle of September in 2012, we were on pace to win 100 games. We were the best team in the game, and then the whole team went in a funk for the last 10 days. We ended up losing the division to Oakland. Josh, being the best player on the team, wore a lot of that from the fans. And so, I think the way it's been talked about since was that Josh, himself lost the division, and when the reality is we just didn't play well at all for the last 10 days, 2 weeks. And I think the fans will ultimately embrace him like anything else. If he produces and helps us win, they're going to love him. If he struggles, they're going to treat him the way that they would treat anybody that struggles.
John, we really appreciate the time and the candor this morning. Thank you very much. We'll check in again, and good luck as this thing goes forward.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Jon Daniels, general manager of the Texas Rangers. Young, real smart guy. And I don't fully understand. I read some columns yesterday about it. I understand, when you sign Josh Hamilton, you know what's going on, and you know what you're bringing into your organization.
Well, you do, but it doesn't mean you're going to accept it if there's a relapse. I think you took a chance. It was a very expensive chance, and you saw, and this is their decision. He relapsed, and they said, okay, that's it. We
just wash our hands of you literally no matter what.
Yep.
We have to eat all of the money. You have a full guaranteed no trade clause, so you can fully dictate the only place you can go. So now we basically wind up spending $100 million on a guy and not even give it a chance to see if he can play again.
Yeah, you took a risk.
Does that make sense to you?
No, it doesn't make sense. I didn't say it made sense to me.
It doesn't make sense to me.
But obviously you can see it from their side. There wasn't even a question for Moreno. It was no locker, no nothing.
No, I don't see it from their side. That's my point. I can see what they did. I don't see why they did it. It's like the definition of cutting off your nose to spite your face.
It's your own thought. It's your thought process. We're rolling the dice. We're spending a lot of money. If it doesn't work out, then we're going to eat a lot of it. They know as soon as they sign the deal, they're eating a lot of money, whether it's by bad play, by injury, or by relapse.
But he might come back and play well.
They don't want that issue around them. I mean, that's obviously their decision. I get it. I understand it. I didn't say I would do it.
I know. I don't mean to fall back on it again, but you brought the issue in the first place at an enormous price tag.
And you knew it was a possibility, and maybe you knew in your mind that if it went down that path, you were going to get rid of him. You tried, it failed, you move on. Cost you a lot of money.
A lot of money. You realize how much money they're going to wind up spending?
I realize how much money they spend, and I realize how much money they make. I'm not going to feel too bad about,
I'm not, but you can't make $100 million mistakes that are somewhat avoidable. My point is, I'm not criticizing him for signing him in the first place.
Right.
I'm saying right now, he can play. He's eligible to play. He can get himself in shape and see if he can be a contributing member of your team for some of this money that you're paying him anyway. Right. You're choosing him, send him away, and get absolutely nothing in return and writing this huge check for it. Does that make any business sense at all? Is what I'm asking you.
No business sense, but there's if you want to say moralistically to them, they didn't want that issue around them. You can't, they're the one. They're spending the money, and if they don't want that issue around them, you can criticize them for that. You can have an opinion that it doesn't make good business sense, but it won't be the first or the last time some business on a moral situation has decided to eat some money. to say, not on our team. We don't want this here. He let us down. He did this or he did that, or there's reasons they don't want him. So does it look smart business-wise and financial-wise? No. But as I said, it won't be the first or last time a decision isn't made on a financial situation.
Yeah, I'm flabbergasted, to be completely honest with you, at the way they chose to handle this. And most of the columns that I read about it yesterday agreed with, with my side.
Oh, no, listen,
side
I
is a relative term.
And I understand you. I'm just telling you there has to be a thought process from the other side of why they did it. I think I'm just trying to lay that out.
We're Mike and Mike. We're presented by Progressive Insurance. Is Brian Kenny ready to go? Because we'll bring him in. We really are planning to talk to Brian mostly about boxing. But, of course, he also is one of the lead anchors on MLB Network, and we'll have a perspective on this as well. So we'll ask BK that when he joins us in just a moment here on Mike and Mike after a word from TakeMeFishing.org, Golic. And everyone knows that you are one with a love of fishing. It came from your family, and you've handed it down now to your boys as well.
So interesting. With Jake, who's home now while Mike's in New Orleans, Jake, as the draft is this week, he just went out and got himself a new rod and reel and was just putting it all together last night to do himself a little fishing. And fishing has been a big part of our life, whether I was catching my first fish off a stone pier on Lake Erie, with my dad and my brothers, or I was taking my kids when I had a place in Orlando and they were of that age to take them out behind the house for them to catch their first fish. There's nothing like it. There's absolutely nothing like the wonderment and the smile on a kid's face when he reels in that fish. So whether it's the first fish of the day or, in some cases, obviously there has to be that first of your life, TakeMeFishing.org wants you to get out and make your first catch. And if you show them using hashtag first catch sweeps, you could win an all-new Evinrude E-Tech G2 250 powered Ranger Z21C 521C bass boat. Again, it's a great-looking bass boat if you don't understand all that going on with it. It's a fantastic bass boat. See the official rules at TakeMeFishing.org. No purchase necessary in 48 U.S. and D.C. 18 and older you must be. Ends May 25th, 2015. Void in Alaska, Hawaii, and where prohibited. See TakeMeFishing.org for rules.
Mike and Mike.
Boxing has allowed him to profit off of being unlikable. And now you want to boycott his fights. Like, I get it if something happened again this week. To me, it's sort of like the stuff has been rotting in your fridge for a decade. You just decided to open the fridge this week?
That was Dan Lebitard yesterday here, his show on ESPN Radio. His thoughts on the members of the media who are just now calling a lot of attention to some of the outside-the-ring issues Floyd Mayweather has long had. We want to get into that and a whole lot more with our old buddy Brian Kenny, now one of the lead anchors at MLB Network, but to me one of the absolute best when it comes to talking about boxing as well, so we'll do both of those with BK. How are you this morning, Brian?
Good, Mike. Good to talk to you again.
It's always our pleasure. Before we get into all the fight stuff, we just had Jon Daniels on, the general manager of the Rangers, as they bring back Josh Hamilton. And Mike and I got into a discussion. I have been trying to understand, in a way that makes sense to me, the rationale of Artie Moreno, the owner of the Angels, deciding with a known quantity that was Josh Hamilton, knowing the demons and knowing the risks you were taking bringing him in the first place, that when he has a relapse, that's it. We're getting rid of him. He doesn't have a locker. He doesn't have a place here. We're getting rid of him no matter what happens. We'll give him away. We'll pay all the money and not even give it a chance to see if he can still play. I don't understand it. Can you explain it to me?
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. It seems like either, I don't know, frustration or it seems vindictive. We was doing the show yesterday on MLB Network, and Joel Sherman was with us, and he said, maybe like Hamilton is seen as A-Rod. There are parallels there where a guy is, disgraced, and then do you bring him back? You're trying to get out of the contract. But I don't think the greater baseball public and the baseball fans are looking at Josh Hamilton the way they look at A-Rod. A-Rod came into this season as a pariah. I think people have a greater understanding of Hamilton and what he goes through. And I don't think he was anything but missing this part of the season. Maybe they're angry at the investments over the last few years. I mean, Pujols, C.J. Wilson, and Josh Hamilton, they haven't worked out. But from this point forward, that's a bad baseball decision. They're paying $65 million to him the next 2 years to not play. It's a no-brainer for the Rangers to pick him up. As far as he's fallen, Mike, because he's not an MVP candidate, his plate, his plate strike zone discipline has eroded. He's not the same guy. That was clear, by the way, before they signed him. But he's still an above-average baseball hitter. So it's $2 million a year. That's nothing. Of course you take that.
How do you think the fans for the Angels see this?
I think fans around baseball, I think the media even has looked at this. Like, if you just kind of gauge the tenor of the reaction when Hamilton admitted that he had relapsed, was one of understanding and kindness. And, hey, this guy needs help. I think it was probably only 10 years ago where you wouldn't get that reaction. Remember how we all had a lot of laughs about Steve Howe many years ago, every time he relapsed and kept going back to cocaine, and it was always a 7-time loser, an offender, and what's wrong with him? He was ripped on a daily basis in the New York press. That's not how Hamilton was treated. So I think fans, wherever they are, baseball fans, welcome him back.
Mike and Mike, Brian Kenny, you can watch every day, weekdays, 4 o'clock Eastern Time, MLB Now on MLB Network. And some of my favorite memories of my time here at ESPN were back when I used to host Sports Center with Brian Kenny, and he would just teach me about boxing. Yep. We would say, you get Brian talking about boxing, and that's about as good as it gets. So you are exactly who I wanted to talk to today. If Floyd Mayweather beats Manny Pacquiao in something of convincing, meaning there's no real question about a decision or anything like that, if he is a decisive winner, what does this do for his legacy? And if he runs the overall record to 50-0, then what is Floyd Mayweather historically in the sport of boxing?
Well, I think he's way up there. The record, you can always make of it what you want. And we will always know. This is what gets lost in boxing a lot of times, Mike. And I know when we had these conversations, I would always bring up Bert Sugar, the great Bert Sugar. We did all those great ringside, classic series on ESPN Classic. That's still run. People call me up and say, hey, I saw you on ESPN Classic with Bert. I'm like, oh, it's on again. Good. And what Bert always did was he brought you to a time and place. Just like now, I could tell you, but you would have to explain it to a 22-year-old kid. Mike, you'd have to say, hey, by the way, when Mike Tyson fought Larry Holmes, that was not Larry Holmes. Just like Joe Louis was 127 years old and he fought Rocky Marciano. Yes, of course, he was not the same guy. So now they're both old. So you can say, hey, that's not the real Manny Pacquiao that he fought. But, Floyd's older. Floyd's 38. But we know it's not the same Manny Pacquiao as 2.5 years ago, 5 years ago. It's not the same guy. That all said, I'm consistent with where I view Floyd. He's one of the greatest defensive fighters of all time, and he's right there with, Roy Jones and Pernell Whitaker as the greatest fighters of this last generation. Right there. Now, if Pacquiao wins, now you got to reevaluate Pacquiao. But Floyd being undefeated has to go in his favor, obviously. But obviously, he's also been very careful about putting himself in the best position to win every time out.
So as we look at this fight and talk about Mayweather and talk about Pacquiao and talk about the pay-per-view and talk about the spectacle and talk about the money that they're going to make, does this help boxing at all, or just Mayweather's camp and Pacquiao's camp?
I think it puts it on the map a little bit more, Mike. I think it throws it out there and just puts it in the mainstream. These guys have, a high visibility. They get you talking about the fight, not just the hardcore fight fans. So I think it definitely gets it back out there. And if you see this fight, it kind of reminds you of why you like boxing in the first place. I know for the last 10 years, the thing I hear from most everybody is, I'm really a big fight fan. God, I loved Hagler and Hearns and Sugar Ray, and I love it. I don't really watch that much of it now. When you're brought back to it, you might be reminded of how great it really is.
Yeah, and those people are talking about something that was 25 or 30 years ago, which gives you an indication of the problem. So who do you think wins?
I think Floyd wins via boring decision, unfortunately. That's my most likely scenario. And I think the most significant thing that people are not talking about so far in this fight, Mike, is Kenny Bayless as the referee. I'm absolutely stunned that the Pacquiao camp is allowing Kenny Bayless to ref this fight. Kenny Bayless is a very good referee, but the way he reffed the Mayweather-Maidana fight, the second fight, Mayweather's last fight, I was on Showtime, and I was screaming in the post-fight. And Al Bernstein, Paulie Malignaggi, they were with me. And Al Bernstein at one point during that fight against Maidana said, Bayless is looking to break up a clinch, and it hasn't even happened yet. See, Floyd benefits greatly from he wants to take the air out of the ball, to use the basketball term. Take the air out of the ball, slow it down, reduce the mayhem, reduce the chances, and reduce the risk. Slow it down. He will, he doesn't throw combinations. He's not like Roy Jones. He comes in and hits you with 5 shots, throws you 5-punch combination, jumps around, throws 5 more. He hits you once, hits you twice, grabs you. or hits you once, hits you twice, disengages. He wants to make you earn that territory, what Teddy Atlas calls the no man's land. You've got to get from where you're standing to inside to my body and then start to, put the hurt to me. Now, Pacquiao is not Maidana, but Pacquiao still will need to do a little inside work. And every time Floyd hits you once, makes you pay on the way in, grabs you, Kenny Bayless against Maidana, every single time, and I mean every single time, said break. A good referee says, fight out of that. You have a hand free. Fight out of that. And Joe Cortez did that with Mayweather-Hatton, and it changed the fight, but it was nowhere near as what I would call egregious refereeing by Kenny Bayless in that last fight. He totally took Maidana out of the fight, and if I'm in the Pacquiao camp, I absolutely protest the appointing of Kenny Bayless as the referee. They should not want that guy in the ring.
Wow, so certainly something to be watching for. An outstanding analysis, as you'd always expect from our buddy Brian. What a pleasure. Thanks. Good to talk to you again. We'll see you soon, Brian.
Guys, take care. Always good to talk to you as well.
This has been the best of Mike and Mike on ESPN Radio Pod Center. To hear more from Mike and Mike, log on to ESPNRadio.com and become an ESPN Radio Insider.
The best of Mike and Mike.
Hey, Mike Golic here, and I certainly love to fish. And when my dad took me out fishing for the first time when I was 6 and I caught that bluegill, I was so proud. Such a great memory, an experience everybody should have. Whether it's the first of the day or first of a lifetime, TakeMeFishing.org wants you to get out and make your first catch. And if you show them using hashtag #FirstCatchSweeps, you can win an Evinrude E-Tech G2 powered Ranger bass boat. Learn more at TakeMeFishing.org.
No purchase necessary. 48 U.S. and D.C. 18 and older. Ends 5/25/15. Void in Alaska, Hawaii, and where prohibited. See site for rules.
Two of baseball's best go head-to-head in interleague action when the Tigers head to St. Louis to face the Cardinals. The pregame at 7 Eastern, first pitch at 8, Sunday on ESPN and ESPN Radio.